Homeland Security. Donald J. Trump suggests extreme vetting for refugees fleeing the Middle East as President Obama and Clinton continue to push more in against the will of the majority of Americans. The left's anti-comp movement continues to ravage the country. I don't know in how many terms the American people can say we don't want to bring people in from all over the world who we don't know, we don't trust, we don't know what their background is. My friends, some really close friends of mine, have been saying this for a while, that this is not going to stop until the American people stand up, revolt, revolution.
I'm amazed at you.
Armed.
I have such respect for you, but you must be kidding when you talk about the American people. Who are the American people? Are we going to have a dictator, a military dictator who's going to use the troops? Well, what was that great movie about 30 years ago, 7 Days in May? General Scott was played by Burt Lancaster. It was a great role. In those days, the liberal president was a hero, and Kirk Douglas was the Marine colonel.
So nothing's changed.
Yeah, nothing's changed. There is no such thing as the American people as far as policy is concerned. The American people have become the dupes of policy, not the makers of policy. So the American.
Don't you think that half of this country is not following along, or maybe even a little bit more than half this country?
Yes. I really do. I think when I've seen the kind of things that have been perpetrated on this country in the last 8 years, and what in the name of this country or by the country itself, and nobody seems to
really
care.
The last 15 years. Bush had a lot to do with setting the stage for a lot of this.
I agree. You're absolutely right. Let's say this century.
Correct.
You're right. But the point is, it's been a sort of a, since the 90s, and I give Clinton credit to a certain extent because he did a better job than has been done since then. And what we have is nobody stands up to things that are obviously anti-American against the, for instance, having open borders. Nobody talks now about the open borders to Latin America, to Mexico, and so on. Now they're talking about bringing in Syrians by the thousands. How many incidents do we need, like Orlando, for instance? How many of those type of incidents do we need before there is anybody going to stand up? Nobody's going to stand up because, when you look around, there was nobody there to stand up.
I mean, the father of the Orlando shooter was sitting behind Hillary Rodham Clinton at her speech.
That makes
and nothing, and she gets away with it.
Yeah, but you see, that's what I'm saying is that this is something that absolutely astounded me. That when you say we talk about the American people, good people, greatest people on the face of the earth. I mean, we stand for all the wonderful things that people are proud of in their history. But those people don't seem to get anything done because whether it's the Republican Party in power or the Democrats or I'll tell you the one segment of history, recent history, that made me feel maybe things are going to change was the Tea Party. When the Tea Party got up, they were the ones responsible.
But the federal government has a large fly swatter, and they're able to swat little Americans away.
I'm only saying is at that time it seemed like the people were finally getting organized.
And they squashed it, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was squashed, and there was no momentum to keep it going. Unfortunately, you need some kind of a militant organization in order to get things done. You can't do it anymore.
So we need a General Assisi to come in here.
He sure did a pretty good job in Egypt.
And he had his hands full. He was going up against the Muslim Brotherhood and the American media and the Barack Obama administration. He had a lot of pressure against him.
I think one of the great heroes of this era, you're absolutely right. You know where he was trained?
America.
Fort Benning, Georgia. I mean, the guy was smart. You know who he's very friendly with today? Bibi Netanyahu. They talk on the phone almost every night.
What a development that is.
Assisi, who was he? He was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi, who brought him in to the low-level Defense Department guy. Next thing you know, he's made Secretary of Defense. Next thing you know, he's taking care of the Muslim Brotherhood. Bravo. I applaud that man, one of the great heroes of our time. That's the kind of leadership we need.
Absolutely.
He's the first guy that's gone out of his way to protect the Coptic Christians, which make up 10% of Egypt's 100 million population. The 10 million. These people were hunted down like Jews were hunted down in Germany.
And they're still being hunted down by ISIS in the Middle East.
Yeah,
and yet
right.
less than 5% of these refugees are Christian coming into America from the Obama administration and hopefully not, but Hillary Clinton administration.
You know, that's another point that really annoys me. The so-called leaders of the Christian community, whether they're the Protestants or Catholics, whether the evangelists or whatever, why don't they stand up for their brothers in the Middle East? They're allowing them to get slaughtered, just like American Jews.
It's a genocide.
The American Jews did nothing for their brothers in Europe. They said, oh, no, President Roosevelt, he didn't care about a few million Jews getting killed in Europe. I would say that only to show comparison, that it's one thing to be for something, it's another thing to put some muscle behind it.
The war on cops continues, and this is another one of those situations where you'd think that law enforcement would at some point have to either A, not show up to any other crime scenes, or really put the foot down. Where are we going to go with this? Because it's getting ridiculous.
All our institutions, whether it's a National Guard, whether it's border guards, whether they just do what they have to do. They're patriots to even be on those jobs, but nobody's there to back them up. Those people in power are against them. So when you have these horrible events that have occurred in Milwaukee, where they burned down a bank, for instance, for what purpose? Just to show they can burn down the place where money is being made. And nobody did anything about it. No, they arrested 2 or 3 people and so on. That makes my point.
Well, it's like Baltimore, where they said give them their safe space to destroy what they need to destroy.
This is what's called anarchy.
Yep.
We are falling back into a situation. I don't know where this is eventually going. Anybody to predict it right now is a fool, because there's so many aspects of happenings working against each other. But until this, I'm sorry to say this, now I know that some people will not like me saying that, we need a strong man, even a dictator in this country, in order to get things going again.
We'll get to him in our next segment.